Hey everybody, Cracker Jack Mechanic here. Thanks for tuning in. In this video, I'm going to show you my frame jig and some of the changes that I'd like to make. So when I started this project, really what I was trying to do was build a frame jig. Something I've wanted to do for a long time. It's not that there isn't a lot of instructions and pre-made ones. So one of the main qualifiers was that I wanted to use some of the steel that I had around the shop. I had a lot of this 1x1 square tubing, really common, and some other random pieces that seem to work out well. You'll see that they are rusty. That's because some of that stuff was sitting outside. So again, it was just a resourceful project. I wanted to be able to use stuff that I had around. This was my first frame jig. It's something I've wanted to do for 20 years, never really got around to it, and finally had the opportunity to do it with this Cafe Racer project build. So I went ahead and started with my frame jig. Just was something I had in mind. I've seen other ones online, different drawings over the years, different shops that had some kind of a fixture that were able to do the same thing. So now after having made one, there is some improvements that I will make on this one to carry forward onto my next project. This one, I used the frame jig to do the monoshock swing arm, and I've got other videos that kind of detail that. This one specifically, this video is going to detail my frame jig and some of the changes that I'd like to make. So I'm going to get some close-up video here, show you the some of the finer points and what I would change to make it a little bit bigger. Overall, you can see it really is just the two bottom 1x1 steel square tubing. I don't even really know how long it is. Overall it's just over 5 feet. I've got some angle iron for the uprights at the front, welded in at 90 degrees. This is really where I'd like to make my biggest improvements. There's better ways to do it, but this was a functional way, and it held the frame, primarily what you need the jig to do. This frame jig wouldn't be strong enough for straightening a bike if you had to use hydraulics and such, but that wasn't the case here. I was just doing some modifications. I wanted to be able to take reference points off of the frame jig. So what you see up front is I've got some angle irons. Biggest concern when I put these in was to get them square. I've got the longer pieces, and in this one I made an actual more permanent fixture to hold the lower motor mount. These pieces of square tubing have a piece of tubing welded to the bottom. I've got a 2-inch space. I've got a 2-inch space between the 1-inch square tubing. This piece fits in there and can move back and forth. I have some upright pieces that can move with it, and I just clamp them on as necessary. Some holes drilled, one for each side, that I'm able to use. These ones specifically were used for the swing arm pivot. These square tubes across the bottom are actually welded. They hold I've got one at each end. You can see the clamp here, and I use them to kind of hold it to the bench. So a lot of what you're really trying to do with the frame jig is keep everything square. I use a machinist square and made sure that the uprights were square before tacking them in, and made adjustments after they were tacked, that they're flat across the front. In this case, because the angle iron actually tips back, they're at the same angle, but the angle itself kind of runs away. Don't know if you can see that with the square. Kind of get you in there so you can see. So you can see there's a little bit of space. Now that reason was so that the inside is actually parallel faces to one another. seems to be the common thread, pun intended, on all frame jigs, is the 3/4 inch rod that is used to hold your frame. A key piece in the fixture is the tapers. I use Delrin. This screw isn't tight, but it just helps when you're when you slide them up quickly. You can tighten that in and just kind of hold it temporary till you can bring the nut down or the nut up to the position you need it in. So the biggest improvement could be made around this fixture, and what I'd like to use would be a 2x3 piece instead of these 2 angle irons on either side. One solid 2x3 tubing and the clamps on the side, like you'll see in a lot of the commercially made motorcycle frame jigs. So I had a 3/4 inch nut, put some smaller, I think they're 3/8 nuts on either side with the washer. That gave me 2 inches in between, which is consistent with the frame rails down here. The 2 inches between the frame rails all the way to the back. So it was an easy way, and like I said, I was just trying to be resourceful using what I had around the shop, and I had these 3/4 inch nuts. So I used the 3/8 in the side. You can just loosen those, and you can make let the frame find its spot when you put the protractor up on the neck to find your rake. So the frame itself will kind of move as you change. I just have a magnetic protractor, set it on there, kind of find your rake angle as you adjust the neck up and down. Now remember, when you put this on the road or down and you put the forks on, the length of the fork will change how the bike sits. When I do this, I've already factored in that, and I will shorten my forks to get the ride height I want. Key thing is that you've got a strong or reasonably strong fixture that can hold the frame at the rate that you want to have it at, and you can reference everything from there. Some frame builders like to build the frame from the rear axle forward, which I think is a reasonably good way to do it. You've got a strong fixture, you can use it again on the back. So my idea from other jigs that I've seen, I didn't have it, would be to use 2" by 3" square tubing, have it come up higher with the side plates holding the actual rod at the front. I don't know who makes the jig, but I have seen it made commercially. That is a nicer front fixture. It's a little more robust, but for this actual exercise of making this project with the swing arm, this lighter duty frame jig was more than adequate. This piece here actually is able to float back and forth as you adjust the rod. That this will move, so it's nice. I can release the front to stand the bike up, stand it up, then the rod points out back. You can hang a plumb bob from that and reference your center line on the frame by just pivoting it on this here. I just have to loosen the nut, take the rod out of the base, and be able to stand it up. So with the jig, the neck itself has to be perpendicular to your rear axle. What's going on in here is important, but a lot of bikes don't have a backbone necessarily. This one's not 100% straight, but I suspect that it wasn't from the factory. It's just a pressed steel frame, put together, welded in halves, and it just kind of drops off a little bit towards the bottom on the center line. But the neck and the swing arm and the rear axle are all right angles to one another, which is what you need to have the bike run straight, including your center line for your front wheel to your rear wheel. So a light duty jig like this is adequate to be able to make those reference point checks fairly easily. So I like to start and make sure the frame itself, the frame jig itself is parallel to the ground. I have a selection of spirit levels back here. Level is level. This isn't reinventing the wheel, gravity, anything like that. I've got a smaller spirit level here. I use it across the swing arm. That's a fairly flat surface. A lot of the times they're magnetic. I can see that the frame jig itself is or isn't parallel. And then under my main feet, I can add shims. Plumb bob, hang it, get it on center, let it kind of stabilize, and you'll find your center lines. You just want to make sure that you've got a really good level surface to start with. So spirit levels, plumb bob, maybe a chalk line. I do have a laser level that I use, comes in handy. So I'm making sure that the frame jig itself is parallel to the ground with the spirit level. I've added a couple of shims. You'll see down here. You'll see down here under the foot for the frame jig that I've actually got a couple of shims in under the clamp, and that was just to get it so that it was parallel, level to the ground, so I had a good starting point. So we put those shims in there, make sure that it's level so that when we're referencing with the plumb bob off the stem, we've got good reference points. It's clamped down to the table. The swing arm itself is movable. I put a piece of plate in there just to hold the wheel for the meantime. I check the center line with the frame standing up. It's a pretty simple frame jig. You can put a more robust fixture at the back to hold the axle. I'm using the wheel. I do think that I'll make that as well going forward with this jig. This one's good for the smaller, the light stuff. With this particular swing arm setup, I was able to make all the points I needed. Keep the axle itself parallel to the ground and perpendicular to your neck. That's the key. You've got that, you'll be okay. Center line of the wheels I can reference from the back with it standing up and the plumb bob hanging down. I check my sprocket alignment from here. It's pretty good overall. It gives you at least a starting point. The project didn't cost me a whole lot. Just a simple way to start. Didn't have to spend a lot of money, and I can build from there. Real organic process. I think that's part of the excitement. Doing it as inexpensively as possible, learning as much as you can. And I learn more just by doing hands-on than reading a lot of times. Reading helps, watching a video helps, but just really get in there and do it for yourself. That hands-on, ad hoc, just going at it your own way and figuring it out. So you keep in mind, parallel to the ground for the axle, you can take the axle out, take your pieces off, just put the rear axle itself back in, put a spirit level on there, a line level, anything that shows you like a bubble level, back and forth, get the actual swinger, the axle itself parallel to the ground. Once I have this with shims, knowing that the frame itself is parallel, I can reference off the frame on other level surfaces, knowing that everything is all in line. If you like this video, click that subscribe button. Crackerjack Mechanic, thanks for watching.